listening to WBCN here in Boston. Tracy Roach with you, along with Elvis Costello, Nick Lowe, and Oedipus this afternoon on the radio. Of course, not Oedipus, you're not going to be there tonight. Nick and Elvis are going to be at the Orpheum tonight doing a show along with Mink DeVille and Dave Edmonds, who will be playing with Nick's band. And Nick, that's something I do want to talk to you about. Nick Lowe's been around for years and years and years and years doing music and stuff. As many of you know, he was he was a part of. He's been a part of Dave Edmonds' band, and gosh, Brinsley Schwartz produced a lot of those albums, played on those, wrote songs for them. Graham Parker, you've produced Elvis's 2 albums, and now you've done one all of your own. And I guess I just want to ask you a little bit how it's been to suddenly be out doing that. Suddenly Nick Lowe's out in front, and for years you weren't. Has it been a new experience? Why did you do it? All of that junk. Just how's that for a succinct, short question?
Why did I do it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's what I do for a living, basically. I don't really understand your question, actually.
Well, basically, just being in the background for so many years in a lot of ways. I mean, Nick always seemed like you'd spend most of your time making other people's records sound good, the production.
I see, yeah.
Now you're doing your own. I mean, now it's Nick who's going to be out on stage tonight performing up front, leading the band rather than being one of the members and a back working part of it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I do.
And just why and how does that feel doing that?
Well, I wasn't in the background on purpose, you know, before. It wasn't, you know, consciously trying to be in the background. It's just that prior to the last 6 months.
So for all this time, and do you feel like it's something new and something fresh, and that you've broken through to it, you know, a new dimension in rock and roll at all, or is this just?
Well, I don't.
Why didn't you lose your sense of humor? You know, that kind of thing.
Oh, it's very hard not to, you know, to lose your sense of humor. You've got to have a sense of humor about it nowadays, otherwise you'll start sounding like Journey or something like that.
No, don't say that. No, that's cruel.
Oh, all right, then Jefferson's Starship, then.
I wanted to ask you about Boston, too, Elvis. I read your comments in Newsweek about Boston, and since you were in Boston, I figured you could... They're probably listening, and...
Every word I say is true.
Elvis, someone called in and wanted to know, the last time you were here, you played at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, and...
Don't remind me.
They wanted to know why you broke all your guitars and walked off stage
we didn't break any guitars. We did some damage to some gear. Basically because we're a professional band and our contract says that we have to play a set of an accepted length to a professional standard, and in return the promoter is supposed to provide a professional sound system and professional lights, which they didn't. And it's very annoying when it's bad enough when you play in a place where there's a lot of apathy and the audience doesn't seem to understand what you're doing or doesn't want to know. But when you've got an audience which is enthusiastic and you're prevented physically, or, as you might say, from actually doing a good show because you're limited by the gear that was provided in terms of the contract, then it can get very frustrating. And that night we just cracked, and that was the reason that the show finished as it did.
What about shows in general?
Also, we nearly got arrested later on by the Massachusetts police the next morning when the very courteous people at Amherst University decided that we hadn't paid the bill and called the police.
Well, there's
in fact, every time we come to Massachusetts, we seem to get in trouble.
The Paradise, the Rat, you know, all of it.
You have been invited back to the Rat.
Oh, it wasn't, you know, I mean, I can hardly wait.
In fact, we've got a copy of that article. You were written up after you left town for getting thrown out of the Rat, both of you, and Jake, so we'll show you that later. But you are invited back tonight. Has that been the case all over the United States?
No, it's just Massachusetts.
Well, what about
I told the agency I never wanted to come back.
What about crowds and stuff?
Well, there's a
Elvis's
notorious
manager
incident
is now crawling around the floor.
A photographer once. Do you prefer not to have your photograph taken during a concert?
Not during a concert unless they're being particularly obnoxious with flash or their positioning. I think you might be referring to the thing that was in Cream. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't mind plugging Cream magazine because, you know, the way I feel about them. That was just a lot of lies, basically. Cream are a bunch of lies and they can sue me if they want to. That incident did in fact occur. The photographer in question was making a complete nuisance of himself. He was asked to remove himself from the area, and he took a swing at our tour manager who proceeded to hit him. It was true that he did get cut, but he did in fact throw the first blow. There was no, not, you know, I'm not the Fuhrer. I don't snap my fingers, and people don't beat people up. It was 1 against 1, and if he'd been near me, he would have dealt with me personally. As it was, he didn't have the, the nerve to come actually into the dressing room. You know, he was just being obnoxious while we're on stage, where you're at the most vulnerable, because it's a question of whether you're going to break the continuity of the show to deal with one person as being particularly obnoxious. It's the same when we get missiles thrown at the stage. We've had a few incidents. Yeah. It's very difficult because you're spoiling the whole show for everybody by dealing with one person individually. We've had to stop the show on a couple of occasions. In Portland, we had an M80 stage flash thrown. Pete, our drummer, got hit in the face with a bottle in Toronto. We've had and it's only one person, and it's the same, be it a photographer or some idiot throwing stuff. We had an incident in LA on our first tour where there was another guy trying to get on stage. We just have these odd idiots, to show up at the gigs, and it's particularly annoying to have something, completely untruthful written about that incident in Milwaukee, because it was just totally false. And I sincerely hope nobody from Cream Magazine ever shows their face at any of our gigs, for their own safety.
Well, to change the subject, I want to play something from the Stiffs live album. This has been an album that's been, a lot of people in Boston have been real excited about, because it is a chance to hear what we're going to hear tonight at the Orpheum. You and Nick and everybody all playing together. Gosh, who else is on this? Reckless Eric and Larry Waller and Ian Dury, the whole bunch. So, Nick, this is a song of yours, I Knew the Bride. Is that what we, yeah, that's what we have.
Yeah, it won't sound like this, though, hopefully, tonight. This is something slightly different, because the group that I was playing with on this Stiff tour was, a crazy combination of people. It's slightly more professional outfit.
When was this done? Like, how long ago?
This is done in October, but Dave Edmonds was on drums instead of guitar, and Elvis's drummer, Pete Thomas, was playing guitar. It was all changed around. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's check it out. I Knew the Bride.